Good day, Mom. I am Marian Mae Galab from BSHM2B, and for today I am going to discuss my presentation entitled Organization and Management, Chapter 11, Organization for Purchasing, Storekeeping, and Transportation. But before I am going to discuss my presentation, allow me to read our objectives. First, to locate and maintain the sources of supply. Second, to know the qualifications the head of purchasing department should possess. Third, to provide the advantages and disadvantages of centralizing the purchasing function. Fourth, to explain why the materials and stock control should be placed under the purchasing department or the production department. The last but not the least is to elaborate the work of a traffic department in a manufacturing establishment. Introduction. What is purchasing? Purchasing is generally the term in industry and management used to denote the art and functional responsibility for purchasing the materials and supplies for use. The term purchasing describes the process of buying, learning of the need, selecting supplies, negotiating price, and other pertinent terms and the following up to ensure delivery. In other words, purchasing is an organized acquisition of goods and services on behalf of the buying entity. Purchasing activities are needed to ensure that needed items are obtained in a timely manner and at a reasonable cost. A purchasing department is especially necessary in a manufacturing business, where large amounts of raw materials and components must be obtained on a recurring basis. Next is the function of purchasing. The function of purchasing is as old as selling, for the two acts as complementary and one cannot take place without the other. Purchasing has inevitably developed as a part of large-scale business and department of the specialized functional organization. Furthermore, purchasing is becoming a core competency of the firm, finding and developing suppliers and bringing in expertise that is highly valued by the organization. Purchasing is generally responsible for spending more than 50% of all the revenues the firm receives as income from sales. It has attained ever increasing importance with the recognition of the fact that mass production operation depends on a steady and reliable flow of material and supplies, and the cost of these purchase components constitutes a major factor of product cost. Next is the objectives of purchasing. The purchasing responsibility is sometimes defined as buying materials of the right quality, in the right quality at the right time, the right price from the right source. The fundamental objectives of purchasing for a manufacturing industry may be summarized as follows. First, to maintain continuity of supply to support the manufacturing schedule. Second, to do so with a minimum investment in materials inventory consistent with safety and economic advantage. Third, to avoid duplication, waste, and obsolescence with respect to materials. Fourth, to maintain standards of quality in materials based on suitability for use. Fifth, to procure materials at the lowest cost consistent with the quality and services required. And the last but not the least, to maintain the company's competitive position in the industry to conserve its profits position insofar as material costs are concerned. Next is the buying of merchandise and materials. The ability to buy merchandise for sale is distinctly different from the ability to buy materials for production. The techniques of buying and the objectives are different, and so are the qualifications of the buyer. In other words, Buying is one of the most important roles in retail and consumer sector. It is the buyers who decide what products the company is going to sell and where it is going to be sourced. In buying merchandise, the buyer has in his mind the customers to whom he hopes to sell the goods. His success depends upon his ability to determine what will sell. There is some guesswork and an element of gambling, which attracts many individuals, but the wrong guess surely endangers the job of the buyer. The buyer of materials, on the other hand, has to locate dependable sources of the specified materials at a reasonable price and has to be sure of the delivery. If the material is not delivered on time, operations are affected. And if a high price is paid, the company has to raise the price of the finished product. Moreover, the buying of merchandise and supplies help organize the store, suggest project ideas, remind customers of the items they may have forgotten, and promote special buys. Merchandising also complements advertising by helping customers find sale items. Good merchandising can help increase your productivity by helping you provide better customer service. Next is the buying of equipment and supplies. Equipment is purchased because of the time and labor it will save in turning out accurate and quantity work. But before any kind of equipment is purchased, the requirements of the work to be done must be determined and the equipment examined as to its suitability for the purpose. Having up to date equipment that works will give your business the best chance of increasing productivity and revenue. This will so make you more asset rich in your business, which will provide security and make it easier to pursue business finance options in the future. The purchase of supplies is generally, although to a lesser degree, subject to similar considerations as the purchase of materials. Example upon specification. Inasmuch as supplies are used up within the concern and have no direct effect on customers, some concerned do not pay as much attention to their purchase as they should. Then supplies are likely to be purchased more on a price basis rather than on quality aspects. Next is the organization of the purchasing department. There are legitimate variations denoting some particular relationship in the purchasing organization. From the standpoint of the organization as a whole, the purchasing department is as a rule a facilitating staff department. It makes purchases only on request of the other departments and has no authority to purchase on its initiative. In other words, the purchasing departments often work closely together in a team approach, with each member of the team handling a specific task but come together as a whole to make important decisions. Administrative assistants and clerks are part of that team. The purchasing department is headed by the purchasing agent, and assisting him are the assistant purchasing agent, the procurement officer, the license and marine insurance officer, the canvassing, shipping, and correspondence personnel. As could be noted in the chart, the procurement division and the license and marine insurance division are related under one department. So as we can see in the figure, our first in the chart is the purchasing officer. Next down is the purchasing agent and the assistant purchasing officer. The purchasing agent deals with vendors, collect bids, negotiate prices, monitors vendor performance, while the assistant purchasing officers carries out purchasing process in office, receives PRFs, shares information, organize bid committees, prepare purchase orders, maintains PRF log and filing. Next is the procurement division is charged with the functions of first, attending to the endowment orders and local purchases. Two, the preparation of invitation to bid. And third, assigning purchases requisition PR3 and purchases order PO to canvassers. It could be noted in the chart that there are four canvassing sections, each one assigned to purchase a certain group of materials. The License and Marine Insurance Division undertakes the following function. Two with first, foreign exchange, import and export. Second, the preparation of letters of credit and other bank notes. And third, marine insurance coverage. Under this division is the shipping section, which handles the preparation of trust receipts and shipsides bonds, the following up of shipping documents, and the taking charge of incoming and outgoing shipments. Being a facilitating staff function, the size and the structure of the purchasing department depends on a variety of factors. The nature of the business determines to a great extent the role of the purchasing department. In a manufacturing establishment, the purchasing unit may be a mere division of the manufacturing department. The size of the company would determine the size and the complexity of the purchasing department. Generally, the bigger the company, the bigger and the more specialized would be its purchasing unit. In other words, the size of the company allow us to specialize more in our field of study, provide a more structured environment, offer a formal career path to management or different positions, increase stability within the organization. Next is the cost of materials. As compared to the cost of the finished product is another factor, where raw materials are of utmost importance as in meat packing industries, the purchasing function becomes one of top importance usually handled by a senior vice president of the firm. Next is the organizational philosophy of top management and the location of operations, come into play when a decision on centralization or decentralization of the punching function has to be made. Next is the functions of purchasing. First, we have to secure necessary raw materials, equipment facilities, supplies, and other items according to the specification earlier arrive at the time fixed by a schedule or when they are needed. Second function is to buy at prices according to the standards demanded within current market prices but taking advantages of discounts that may be availed of. Third is to ask for quotation or bids on major items and to purchase items not requiring bids, to canvass for prices when the need rises. Fourth, to cultivate sources of supply. And fifth, to participate in the formation of specification for purchases and in conferences where purchasing is related. 6. To be on the lookout for new products or desirable substitutes. 7. To interview salesmen even when what they sell is not needed at the time and help them see companies' executives. 8. To study markets and the best time to buy. 9 is to count and inspect purchases, and 10 is to approve invoices for payment. Next, 11, we have to keep informed on government regulations and inform other executives about them. 12 is to keep records on supply materials and other purchases. 13 is to study the company needs and requirements. 14 is to attend the routing of purchases. And the last but not the least is to look after the disposal of surplus or the obsolete materials, equipment, supplies, and merchandise. Those are the functions of purchasing. Next, we have the procedure in purchasing. First, the purchase requisition is prepared and signed by the department head needing the material. Second, the requisition is coursed through the accounting department for indication of funds available, after which is signed by the treasurer or the head of the company or the manager or whoever is authorized to act in their stead. Third, the purchase requisition is then forwarded to the purchasing department. The procurement officer assigns it to the canvasser concerned, who in turn makes a canvassing as to source availability and price. Fourth, the purchase order is signed by the purchasing agent, the requisitioner, the treasurer, and the general manager. Fifth is the purchase order is then forwarded to the supplier or to the winning bidder in the case of bidding. Six is upon delivery of the purchased goods, they are checked by the requisitioner and the representative of the inspector or auditor to find out whether requirements as to specifications are complied with. So these are the procedure in purchasing. Next, we have the relation of purchasing with other organizational units. Analysis of the scope and type of work of a well-rounded purchasing program indicates that the buying operation virtually touches practically every other department of the whole organization in many vital fields beyond the actual procurement of materials and supplies for their needs. Thus, it becomes necessary that close cooperation must be maintained not only with production, but likewise with finance, accounting, engineering, maintenance, sales, office management, and the general management as well. In other words, purchasing and supply department keeps other departments supplied with everything from paper clips to manufacturing materials. Purchasing staff build relationship and coordinate schedules with external partners, especially the business who supply your essential parts and supplies. Next is the purchasing and accounting. Every purchase made represents an expenditure against the company budget and sets in motion a series of accounting operations such as charging the expense to the proper account, the verification and approval of the invoices, final auditing, and payment. In other words, purchase in accounting refers to taking control of a given item or service by paying a set of amount of money. Conversely, it is the exchange of money for a particular good or service. The process is usually undertaken by individuals or corporations in need of items or services. The relation between purchasing and accounting department is considered a vital one which frequently starts before the purchase is actually made. For instance, the purchase requisition before it is finally approved must have to pass through the accounting department for indication of whatever funds are available. Therefore, all transactions should be accounted for within a reasonable limit of time so that payment could be expended within the discount period. To add some information, typically in purchasing and accounting department, they help each other to manage the requisition process and source competitive prices, and generally act as controllers to ensure adherence to budgets. To ensure quality and prevent unethical practices, purchasing is usually separate from receiving and accounts payable. Next is the stores and control. Function. The function of storekeeping is concerned with providing a place or places for safe and convenient storing of materials and supplies that are needed for immediate use, for dispersing such materials as required, and for seeing to it that the supplies do not run out before additional quantities are ordered and received. To add information, Storekeeping ensured an uninterrupted supply of materials without delay to various users of the organization, and to prevent overstocking and understocking of the materials, to ensure handling of materials and prevent their damage, to protect materials from pilferage, thief, fire, and other risks. 1 month is usually assigned to take charge and responsible for all aspects of storekeeping. We have the purposes of storekeeping. The purposes of storekeeping and control may be stated into two categories to with first, from the viewpoint of operation. First, to assure an adequate supply of materials when needed in balance with the requirements and turning over at a reasonable rate. And second, to ensure that they are readily accessible and safe from fire, floods, thief, and other hazards. We have second purpose is the financial viewpoint, wherein first it is to minimize inventory investment at any given time, thus reducing costs of handling and storage, insurance, and interest. Second is to avoid lower from deterioration, obsolescence, and falling prices. Next, we have the location of storerooms and storage facilities. The location of storerooms is an important consideration. It is logical and obvious that the storeroom should be conveniently near to the departments being served, so that no other time may be lost in getting the items needed. In other words, it is commonly believed that good location is the key element to attracting customers. A well-located storerooms also makes supply and distribution easier. Location can influence a retailer's ability to market itself and to deal with the competition it faces from other businesses. Next is the storage facilities must be adapted to the type of materials handled, and which includes rock bins, shelving trays, platform and floor space, all numbered or otherwise identified at a specific location. To add some information, storage facilities to function smoothly and cater to the customer's request. A proper facility of storing and keeping important documents and files is needed. Storage systems are helpful in keeping all office goods, documents, and files in a neat and systematic manner. Next is the records. Records, the basic record of the store's department is the stock record or the perpetual inventory. The records, of course, must be periodically verified, say monthly, semi-annually, or annually. Stock records are useful because, first, they reduce physical inventories to reasonable and economic but sufficient level. Second, they are needed in the preparation of periodic financial statements as profit and loss or income statement. Third, they reveal slow moving stocks and order of preferred priorities in getting stocks. Fourth, they form a basis for adjustment in event of fire, thief, or calamity. Fifth, they minimize the commission of acts of dishonesty and careless. And the last but not the least, they enable the enterprise to keep a delivery dates as promised to customers. Next is the transportation and its importance. But before we're going to tackle its importance, let us first define what is transportation. Transportation is a major contributor to the economy and a competitive Transportation is a major contributor to the economy and a competitive Transportation is a major contributor to the economy and a competitive force in business. It is the activity that physically connects the business to its supply chain partners, such as suppliers and customers, and it is a major influence on the customer satisfaction with the company. Now, what is the importance of transportation? The importance of transportation as a facilitating function of business cannot be emphasized enough. It can affect on the entire economy is pervasive. Thus, a State of the Nation address of the President of the Philippines stresses that the transport sector cannot be neglected for long without the economy suffering adverse consequences. All functions of business must, especially production and sales, are dependent on a properly managed transportation sales. Next slide. We have the modes of transportation. The first mode is the outside transportation. It may be a truck, a bus, by rail, by water, and by air. Trucks and buses are extensively used by business firms in the Philippines. Next is the water transportation. It is even more inexpensive because the Philippines is an independent, heavily archipelago of many islands, trade and industry, and inter-island shipping. Third transportation is the air. It's speedy and efficient but expensive. Business is fast realizing the advantages of air cargo for certain types of merchandise. And the last but not the least is the internal transportation. Fleets are maintained by manufacturing or marketing organization. Now that I have reached the denouement of my discussion, allow me to read my conclusion. Purchases can vary according to type, importance, impact on quality, time frame for delivery, and peso volume. We rarely find purchasing personnels who are experts in all the different types of purchases, which is why so many purchasing departments have specialized personnel. These personnel all have one thing in common. However, the opportunity to manage large amounts of resources through the purchasing process by utilizing e-procurement tools, purchasing can achieve the goals of satisfying user requirements, minimizing non-value added time, and focusing on the deployment of sourcing strategy that can provide tangible value to their enterprise. So that's all for my conclusion. Always remember that when our consumers purchase a product, they are not simply purchasing a product. They are placing their trust in the company, according to Akio Toyoda. Once again, I am Marian Mae Galab from BSHM2B. Thank you for watching and have a nice day ahead, ma. Goodbye.